Welcome back. Mahaska County's 1,000 farmers are less than a month away from their 2010 planting and growing season. According to the field specialist Bob Wells of the Mahaska County Iowa State Extension Office, early indications show area farmers could see a bumper crop this year, but fall is still a long time away from now. CRI's John Hoffman met up with local farmer Richard Johnson as he anticipates planting his seed for the season.
This season will be a challenge just because we're going into it so wet.
Johnson and farmers across Mahaska County are watching the last few piles of snow melt away as they prepare for the 2010 growing season.
Forecasters are calling for wetter than normal, so we look for it to be challenging, but we plan to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
So what does a wet start mean for Johnson and the rest of us?
And it delays planting. And when it delays planting, why, it costs you yield, and that turns around to be money pretty soon.
A lot of money. Combined sales of corn and soybeans for Mahaska County farmers grossed roughly $141 million last year and was an average year according to Mahaska County's USDA office. At 64 years old, Johnson is the fourth generation of a family farm operation in Mahaska County, farming 700 acres of land just west of Oskaloosa, an acre's about the size of a football field. And Johnson says he'll plant half of his land corn and half soybeans, a common practice for area farmers.
We lay a lot of money on the line every year, and you know, most years, due to a lot of things we have no control over, we come out pretty good.
You can expect Johnson and other area farmers on the road and working their fields within the next few weeks. For CRI Weekly News, I'm John Hoffman.
CRI will catch up with Rich Johnson in late April when he hopes to be planting his fields. Local farmers are weeks ahead in their planting schedule because of near-perfect weather and conditions. As of Monday, 19% of the state's corn crop had been planted. Last year at this time, only 5% was planted. Locally, ag specialist Bob Wells of the Iowa State Extension Office estimates that 60% of the corn crop will be in the ground by this weekend. So the farmers have been busy. But not only are they busy, so are the suppliers. Suppliers like the Cargill Field Service Center just north of New Sharon, providing farmers with supplies like seed and fertilizer.
It's been pretty swamped. This year is a big change from last year. Last year there was a lot of rain, so harvest was kind of put off a little late, but this year has been beautiful weather.
Brian Klein is the Field Service Center leader and says he has been working 16-hour days Monday through Saturday just to keep up with area farmers. The center has about 120 customers and covers a 30-mile radius. And one of those customers is Mahaska County farmer Rich Johnson. CRI Ag reporter John Hoffman continues to follow Johnson in a series focusing on the 2010 growing season.
It's the best spring we've had in years, and the crop's going in nice.
A month ago, Rich Johnson was less optimistic, waiting for his land to dry and the snow to melt away.
This season will be a challenge just because we're going into it so wet.
Tuesday afternoon, I met with Johnson planting corn earlier than expected. Credit and thanks to Mother Nature.
We're definitely not behind schedule. This is an early schedule for us. It's a schedule that we definitely like. No doubt that there's a correlation between planting dates and yields.
So will Mahaska County farmers be cashing in come fall?
With the prospects of a good crop and a good crop from last year, prices are a little softer than maybe we'd like to see. I think there's still some opportunities with good yields to make some reasonable profits. I don't think there'll be any big profits, but...
Current price per bushel for corn is $3.55, down 46 cents from this time last year. Current price for a bushel of soybeans is $9.20, down 72 cents from this time last year. But instead of wondering what prices will be like this fall, Johnson is enjoying the early start he's getting now. For CRI Weekly News, I'm John Hoffman.
Well, thanks, John. We'll continue to follow the crops in the field. And Rich Johnson, CRI would also like to remind you to be safe when driving this time of the year. You can expect to see a lot of slow-moving farm machinery on the roads as farmers finish planting their corn and then start planting soybeans in early to mid-May. Homeowners aren't the only ones watching the rain gauge. CRI reporter John Hoffman fills us in on what all this rain means for area farmers in terms of crop production.
floodplains.
Wednesday morning, a special meeting was held at the Mahaska County USDA office to evaluate the current condition of local farmland. USDA County Executive Director Joe Reek called the meeting, inviting local field specialists and soil experts.
Most of our beans and corn have all been planted. There's a few exceptions, but in comparison, some of those counties south and east of here, they're still waiting for dry weather, and they're still going to be waiting.
Like here, right here's one here or two. This is velvet leaf here.
Keith Johnson farms 800 acres northeast of Oskaloosa, and the recent rain has put his herbicide application behind schedule.
If you look down, you can see there's a few broadleaves coming and stuff, and we need to get those kind of sprayed and taken care of here really pretty quick, like before this corn gets much taller.
Johnson farms high ground, land not prone to flooding, unlike farmland along rivers where crops underwater for more than 12 to 24 hours will need to be replanted. At least 3% of the county's land still needs to be planted or replanted, but no matter where the field, it's going to be wet. ISU Extension Field Specialist Bob Wells reports crop conditions for Mahaska County and southeast Iowa.
But about 10 days or 2 weeks ago, when the rains really started setting in on a regular basis, the soil profile building full. It's got nowhere to go but runoff.
This ground is so saturated, any amount of rain just prolongs it. So a couple tenths is more like a ½ inch to 6/10, on a normal year.
But some of those areas now have water on them, and
it's pretty amazing how they can take something that looks pretty bad from now and 2 weeks from now, what they can do with it and grow a crop out of it.
But right now, with the moisture we have, with the progress the crops made since it emerged from the ground, I see no reason to think that we won't have at least an average or above average corn and soybean crop in the county.
At this point in time, I'm not too worried about it yet. So,
For CRI Weekly News, I'm John Hoffman.
Oh yeah.
The Red Rock Dam, 4 miles southwest of Pella, has flood control responsibilities for 200 miles downstream, 140 miles of that being the Des Moines River and 60 miles on the Mississippi. Mahaska County is downstream of the dam, where you'll find the Des Moines River out of its banks and flooding farmland. With more on the flooding and how it is affecting one local farmer, here's CRI's ag reporter John Hoffman.
I think the Red Rock Dam is always critical anytime you're downstream from it.
Rich Johnson rents 60 acres of farmland along the Des Moines River, about 25 miles downstream from the Red Rock Dam.
Even though we have no control over what happens there, what's happening there does determine somewhat your fate of what you harvest.
Right now, the flood stage of the Des Moines River downstream of Lake Red Rock is at 98 feet, almost 10 feet short of the record high flood stage that was set by the flood of 93. John Holtz is the Assistant Operation Manager of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers at Lake Red Rock. He explains the main function of the dam.
The purpose of the dam really is it doesn't stop floods, but it takes the peak off of them.
According to Holtz, Lake Red Rock is at about 75% capacity and able to take on more rain, whether it be local or more water flowing downstream from storms in northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. More rain for Johnson's crops? Well, for some of them, that won't matter. They're gone. But others?
Right now, they're just suffering from wet feet. And if that condition leaves us in the next week or two, I think we stand a pretty good chance of getting decent crops anyhow.
As for lost crops, Johnson explains how his crop insurance works.
Crop insurance, whether it's that field or another field, right now is covering a fairly good percentage of our cost. I think right now probably we're looking at somewhere around 75, maybe 80% of cost.
Weather pending, Johnson and area farmers will likely be harvesting in late September. For CRI Weekly News, I'm John Hoffman.
Iowa farmers are harvesting corn and soybeans ahead of schedule. A report from the USDA puts this year's harvest 31 days ahead of last year and 18 days ahead of the 5-year average. Mahaska County is 90% finished harvesting, allowing farmers more time for fall tillage, fertilizing, and installing tile. CRI reporter John Hoffman caught up with local farmer Keith Johnson to learn more about this year's corn and soybean crop.
It's been stressful. you know, at times worrying about how the crops are going to be, and then just getting it in and getting it out.
Keith Johnson farms 800 acres, and after a wet summer, his corn and soybeans are coming out of the field dry.
It's really surprising how dry the corn is.
Surprising because when I met Johnson last July, he was worried his fields could not take on any more rain.
This ground is so saturated, a couple tenths is more like a ½ inch to 6/10, you know, on a normal year. Like here, right here's one here. When it's wet, the roots do not expand out very far, and it didn't been able to get a hold of the nitrogen that we put in the soil to help it grow better and faster.
Johnson's yields are down from last year, 27% per acre for corn, and soybeans are down about the same. Commodity prices are up 10%, so he plans on making a little bit of money this year.
When your yields are down quite a bit, you still don't come out with as much more per acre as what you did when you had the higher yields and a little lower commodity prices.
But don't forget, the grain that is coming out of the field is dry and at the proper moisture level for sale and/or storage. That's a good thing, kind of.
When you have a drier crop, that's that much percentage less crop or yield that we have, you know. So, you know, if it's down 4%, that's 4% yield, less yield.
Last year, Johnson's dryers were running from now through December. This year, they're sitting idle, saving him thousands of dollars. For CRI Weekly News, I'm John Hoffman.
Thanks, John. Despite Johnson's optimism on turning a profit from this year's harvest, USDA Mahaska County Executive Director Joe Reich tells CRI that overall Mahaska County farmers are reporting low yields and that this is a disappointing year for the local agricultural economy.